All right. Well, we have just exceeded, I think, our how many we've had at past meetings of this esteemed group. So this is wonderful. Thanks everyone for joining us again. The topics that we're going to talk about, I mentioned them in the email. I think most of you got them. We're going to have a roundtable, and we'll do it by way of introductions. Introduce yourself, and then if any of these three questions you'd like to address directly, or all three, if you have the email up on another screen. The first one is cultural barriers. We all know there are many. How do we overcome them? How do we make sure we respect people's culture, but still get that very necessary tool into their hands and have them use them, and hopefully remove that as a barrier, or incorporate it as a way for them to really understand and adopt the solar cooker. Second one is outside forces, some of which are really fight against anything green, any green solution, and how do we overcome that? And the third one is more of a statement I made, when you have local advocates and promoters on the ground, maybe they're distributing your cookers, how do they motivate people to keep focused on solar cooking? So those are the three questions that came to mind. And then, if, as I mentioned earlier, if we have time, the additional topic is, Roger's aware of this. Roger, Sharon, Jim, we met last summer, I think, and we discussed the possibility of forming an actual trade group where you guys
Oh,
can gals can put together, and either whether it's formal or informal, sure doesn't matter to me. It seems like a very nice thing to do, very necessary thing to do, and I'd be happy to continue hosting these forums toward that end and have topics that are relevant to makers. So, like I say, if we have time, we can talk about that. But if it makes sense, I'll go around my screen, and as I see people in order, I'll just ask you a brief introduction, and then any one of these three questions, or all of them, if you have some ideas to share. That way we can cut to the chase on the topics, and see what happens. And Alan, maybe it's alphabetical with your name coming up first, but Alan, we'll start with you.
uh, oh, uh, well, I don't have perfect answers, but I got recent experience of I was on the island of Dominica in the Caribbean, and there was a very nice French lady who's doing a renewable stuff, and she invited people so I could make a show with the solar cooker. And I tried to cook their own plantain. I made fried plantain. I have no idea with coconut oil to try to get close to their style. And I also cooked some fresh tuna from the market with onions. And there I saw the reaction of people, and it kind of surprised me. They said it was really delicious. The banana was delicious. The fish was good because it was not dry as it is usually on a regular stove. And then I tell them, and you can save money. You buy it once, and after that, it's free. And they say, we don't care about that. What we care about is being independent because sometimes the power runs out. What we care about is that it tastes good. And what we care about is it looks beautiful and we can show it to our friends. And there was one guy who sells photovoltaics. So he has lots of experience with clients selling his photovoltaics. And he really gave me a lesson on saying the most important thing is independence. That's the number one
Absolutely.
reason to do that. And another story, just a minute ago, I had two fairly aged people that inquired for their son about a cooker, and they really enjoyed seeing the solar cooker and me telling all the story. But after 1 hour, the lady said, we're old people, we have certain habits, and I don't see myself changing habits to do something different. So I had to try to convince her that she wouldn't have to change that much and that it was quite beneficial for her, that it would be fun, luxurious, tasty, and it's not really a sacrifice. But there was that thing, and as you said, cultural setback. It's here in France, my neighbors in my neighborhood, they say, well, it's not my habit. Um, One thing I was thinking after I stopped is how did people react with the first refrigerator? How did people react with the first gas stove instead of wood or charcoal? How did people react with the first electric stove or the microwave? Each time there were cultural habits that had to be changed. So my reflection is we have to go out and look for pioneer customers, the people that are
Mm.
interested into something different. These are the people that are going to be the leaders to open the technology to everyone. Um, and I have one bad story. I told you recently I tried to get into politics and I invited my senator. He was very nice. Well, he's a right-wing guy. He's not an ecologist for sure. He's
Mm.
into business and making money.
Mm.
And so he listened to everything. He even said, well, it's surprising that this technology is not known better. So few people know about it. And I asked him to please make a law so that we would have less tax from the government. Because in France, the tax is 20%. It's really high. And the government already has reduced the tax on photovoltaic. It's only 5%. On electric bicycles, it's also only 5%. And I said, why not us? And he finally answered, giving me advice to go to shops to sell better. I wasn't asking for that. And he said, well, you haven't sold enough cookers for us to make a law.
Oh,
And I haven't answered yet, but I'm kind of thinking of the answer saying, how long do we have to wait? What is important? Isn't it important that the technology works, the technology is ready, and it doesn't matter how few customers I've had. What is the need today? Well, I'm thinking about these things. That's all.
Sure, sure. And a quick reflections on your reflections, as far as the taxes, that's exactly the point for lowering the taxes. If you make less, because then it's more of a burden on you, the small business. I mean, make it a
mhm.
level playing field, So,
Yeah,
boy,
Right.
and my customers, and I wouldn't make more money, but my customers would spend less.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And as far as the microwave, I think a handful of those I visited on my 8 different road trips, they mentioned that their parents, when they were kids, they had
Right.
like arguments over whether microwaves were safe and whether the food would be safe after it got cooked in them. There were, and of course they
Right.
were that was in the duck and cover era of atomic, the real visceral atomic.
Right.
So it's totally
Oh, yeah.
understandable. But that's overcome. Every household I know has a microwave. Some that's all they cook in. So and then the point of independence, that's where I hope we can be reaching out to more of the what I call the affinity groups, like the permaculture folks, who I'm
Hmm.
just astounded. So
Hmm.
few
Hmm.
they know about solar dryers, but they don't solar cook. And it's like, oh, I guess you can. That's they don't put and they can be cooking while they're out there harvesting from their
Yeah.
very green farms and so forth. So energy independence and just being free to cook where you want too, outside and so forth. But anyway, great. Yeah, those are all points I've heard, and some emphasize some more than others, but they all factor in. Well, the next on my screen, I see Roger. Always good to see Roger. I always joke with him that we have to stop meeting like this. That-
Yes. Um,
yeah,
I I second everything Elaine said. I thought she said it very well. Uh,
Uh,
so I have not much to add. Um, as far as politics goes and trying to get taxes lowered, I am in an effort to try to get the Kenya government to reduce its VAT and customs duties on solar cookers, and we may succeed. We'll see. But I think in all of those efforts, the trade group that Luther has talked about would be a very valuable thing because people need to
yes,
see that you're not just one guy trying to sell some solar cookers. You are a trade group. You're an established organization. This is a technology that has lots of support. And I think trade group for us would be great. I'll let it go
yeah,
there.
yes, and like I mentioned, I'll do this till the day I can no longer click to open up my Zoom call to help host these. I think is so important. And our conversation last summer was just so full of ideas and ways to move forward. And really, the only hardcore question will be, are we going to set up a nonprofit or we just keep it informal? And there's no rush to do that. If this forum accomplishes a lot of the goals, just to get people talking to each other from around the world, I'll be happy. And then my only ask is if I have maybe a co-host who, if I just can't do it one month for whatever reason, someone else can take it over. I could share my Zoom account, or you could do it on your own, and we would hopefully continue sharing the recordings as well, because that way we can share it with people that have not been able to make it. Tom Sponheim, uh, one of my go-to people for information on solar cookers, past and present, out in Seattle. So, your thoughts on adoption, cultural barriers, or external forces, people that don't want it to happen, getting in the way? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a big question to suddenly be asked. Let me see what I have to say.
oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I can say that when I first started in 1989, I thought I was getting in on the tail end, and boy, am I ever going to be part of this? It's going to take off without me. And I remember the first person at a demonstration said, there's cultural barriers to these things. And my thought was, oh, interesting. I wonder. So I don't think I can sum up. I probably things that all of you have found too, that to get people to change what they do is really hard. What they do has meanings aside from the actual action of doing it. Like sitting around the fire has more meanings than just cooking something or just getting warm. And I think some of those intangibles get in the way. Um, I try to look at myself and think, what things am I unwilling to do without or change? And I can see that, I could solar cook more often myself, even here in Seattle. And so I try to use myself to figure out what might be driving other people. I think that's all I've really got to say in generally about it.
Sure. I just had reviewed Steve Harrigan, my visit with Steve Harrigan in Indiana from 3 years ago. And he mentioned he and his wife are part of a mission that part of what they do is to promote solar cooking. And he said, the reality is the women are still doing most of the cooking in the areas where they are in most need, and that when you replace one activity with something like this, you are taking something away. You don't forget you're taking something away, and specifically the gathering of wood. Yeah, so what if it's 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours? They're not all going alone. In fact, they, for their own protection, they don't go out alone, and that's their social time. On the way to the where the wood actually is, they can
Right,
stop in
exactly.
cousins and so forth. And so he says, don't anyone ever forget that. You need to make sure if you uh, give an activity that all of a sudden frees up their time, make sure there's something valuable that they can use with that time. Well, next on my screen, I see Jim LaJoy. Welcome back.
Thank you. Ditto what Roger said, that I support everything that everybody so far has said. So I kind of cheated on your answers, what you were looking for. And I went to a thing called AI, and
Oh,
I asked it, right, which y'all can do. And I asked it, what are the barriers to new product adoption? And there was some pretty interesting answers out there, cost and complexity and things like that. But one of the ones that really jumped out at me was perceived benefit. And the I think that some of us will promote um, solar cooking based on its greenhouse gas. Are you there? Am I still there?
yes.
Yes, you are.
Okay, all right, because my screen just went dark. Um, some of us may promote it based on greenhouse gas reduction or other things that may not be of any interest at all in people who A, maybe don't believe in global warming, or B, can't see global warming or its effects that it may have on them. So my input would be is, find out what their need is and concentrate and promote the solar cookers based on what their need is, um, their local need, and to understand that, going back to Tom's point about the cultural things that go on, um, the it's a tough sell. And I used to talk to Pat McCardle, if I can drop names, about having two people in a refugee camp, and one of them will have a solar cooker and a cord of wood, and the second one will only have a cord of wood. And let's see which one has to come back and replace their cord of wood the soonest, because the person with the solar cooker is going to make their wood last a lot longer. And if you had to pay for your wood, I know in Khartoum people are buying charcoal, and it's very expensive. And to the extent that they can use a solar cooker to supplant some of the things that they use the charcoal for. I think that's the selling point on those. So that and as I've said before, follow-up education and accountability. In South Africa, we're working on an accountability program where if you get a solar cooker, you got to report on your use. And the program's small enough and close enoughly held that people can be contacted informally or formally, saying, "Well, you got the cooker, so tell us what you cooked this week. How did that go?" And follow up the next week. Tell us what you cooked this week. How did that go? Because we can't allow it to be forgotten.
Yes.
That's my input. So.
Sure. Thanks. That reminds me, Wade Steen, one of my guests who had been in the Peace Corps for a couple of years in Latin America, in the manual that they were given in a book that they handed out, 2 Ears of Corn, I think it was called. They said, if you're going to start a project, it has to meet a community-defined need. So what do they see as the need? And so that speaks directly to that point. I see Janie, you should be back on now. Yes, let's try it.
All right. Well, I really agree with Alain, all that with everyone, what you've said. But for me, it's a matter of education. And we really, so your idea of the forum or whatever you call it, what did you call it? The thing that we are all together,
Oh, a
what did you
trade
call
group
it?
or
Yeah, the
yeah.
trade group. I think that is a real answer right there. And I certainly would be willing to do anything that I could to promote that, legwork, whatever you need, Luther. But I think that if we could get started on something like that soon, that would really help all of us because people don't know. One time I showed my solar chef for 14 weeks at a farmer's market every week, every Saturday, all Saturday. And I cooked, cookies, whatever. And and even in my small town, there were every Saturday it was new to them, and it's like, you've got to let people know that such a thing is out there, and then that creates the need in itself. They begin to think, well, what could I? But they have to know it's out there. So that's my 2 cents. Is let's get on that forum, our trade group. I want to do that 100%. Mhm.
Great. Quick note on that too. I had a friend in college 40 years ago where he said, you notice all of a sudden they've got flavored tea in
Ah,
flavors of tea. This is in the
right.
early 80s. And he
Mhm.
said he did some research because he was double majoring in theater and business. And what it was is a guy said his philosophy was, do you create a need and then you fill it? No one thought they had a need for
Yes.
flavored teas. They
Yes.
did some
Yes. I
orange
fully agree.
or whatever they wanted their tea to, but so that could be part of the solution. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, great. Scrolling around the screen some more. Dave Chalker is back for more. Good to see you again, sir.
Yeah, hi everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Good, good. Um, yeah, I'm glad to see everybody interested in participating in Luther's uh, you
Trade
know,
group.
meet and greet.
All right.
Um, most of my input really is based on domestic uh, distribution. I didn't do much international business with my cooker. Um, it was because of the size of what I sold to ship internationally was just it was too
Mhm.
big of a haul. The box ended up being 2 feet by 2 feet and 14 inches deep, and that's just when you ship international, it's either weight or volume. And most of the time, my product ended up being rated by volume, and so it may have weighed 30 pounds, but I would get charged for 65 or 70 pounds.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was a prohibitive thing. And then when you ship international, especially to Europe, you have to, although there's always that VAT charge that the consumer in Europe always thinks about because it's not just the cost of the goods and the shipping, it's the value of what gets landed times the VAT charge. So um, that's always a consideration. Africa, I don't know if Africa uses VAT charges or not. Roger might know, or Jim might know that answer. So my business was primarily just domestic. Uh, the California to Florida, um, and every place in between. Uh, Again, because I sold a hybrid, I think the people that bought it were looking for something a little bit different than just the solar ovens. Um, they were buying it really more for a little bit higher technology, um, and plus the electric backup. So that's what I did for many years. That was the product. And so 99% of what I sold was the hybrid. And occasionally I would have a customer that did not want the electric, and I would just build a solar only for them. But um, awareness, you have to make people aware of the product before you can sell it. And and so many times when you're in business, you want to sell the product, and and you kind of forget that important step that you have to advertise it, you have to market it, and it's a numbers game. You have to, if you'll sell more if you can show it to 10,000 people, you'll sell so many. If you show it to 100,000 people, you'll sell so many. And if you can get it in front of 1 million eyes, your sales will go up accordingly. So, unfortunately, to reach those million eyes, advertising and marketing costs continue to rise. So, depending on your budget, you may never get to those million eyes. You may only be able to afford 1,500, 2,000, 10,000 people that will ever see your product, and the other folks, they're just out there in the unknown void. So for a small business to grow organically, it's very, very hard, and most of the time the odds are stacked against you.
Great, thanks for all that. Dave and I have had conversations offline about customer service, and one of the things I always appreciated was how he responded to people wanting to improve his cookers. Sometimes maybe they were upset, but Dave took it to heart and worked on meeting the need, their perceived need of what the cooker should be like. So that's always
Somebody told me a long time ago that if somebody takes the time to complain, they're not really complaining. They're actually trying to make you better.
Mhm.
And if you can solve that person's problem, then you've stepped up your product one step higher on the ladder.
Yeah.
And if you continually do that as a feedback loop, your product will improve. And it's not improving because people are patting you on the back. It's improving because you're solving a problem that made somebody unhappy.
But that
David,
reminds me, there was, oh, go ahead, Jim.
Can I ask Dave a question real quick?
Sure.
It's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
Dave, can I see what your sweatshirt says? Okay.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
figured out what the heck that is.
My son-in-law owns a pig farm, and it's always something farm in Corfu, New York, and he raises pigs. He's also a physician assistant, so it's kind of a hobby farm for him. But he started out kind of a farm to table concept, and now he just sells exclusively to kind of high-end restaurants in Buffalo area. But that's what the shirt is. One of his sweatshirts.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I can continue to breathe and have a life because that's been answered. So.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, and the one point you made about the customers expressing the need and trying to make you better. I remember a stat from way back. I didn't major in business, but the stat, probably arbitrary, for every customer that does complain, they represent 10 who just did not bother to complain, that they might have had an equal concern, but they just didn't express it. So you meet that one, you'll meet the other 9 as well. So that's always a good rule of thumb. Next on the screen, I see Deepak all the way from India logging in. If you're still there.
Yes, I'm very much there. Hi, Jai Sri Krishna. It's too late for me, but I'm still glad to be there and always glad to be connected with the solar cooking community. So hello everyone, sunny greetings from India. And yes, I think we all are birds of the same feather, working hard to see that we succeed and continue to do work which is very difficult because we are very passionate, but very often we forget that passion alone is not sufficient. We need to be on the grounds. We need to be able to respond to what people need. And very often we will not be able to meet the expectations of people because people do need a solar cooker, but they want a cheap cooker to be able to do everything, even cooking at night. So it's not possible. It's impossible. So for my experiences, I've been in this field for us 35 years, 40 years. And I started with domestic cooker, started with box cooker, then went to parabolic cooker for domestic. And then as a businessman, realized that the only way we can succeed is if we were to do community cooking, because that's where the cost economics kick in. And so introduced us successfully Chef-Lo concentrators for cooking for schools, midday meal programs, and where we could reflect the light in the kitchen. And then came upon the niche market of institutional cooking. And that's where my success came, where I developed and installed many large institutional cooking for thousands. The largest one cooks for 50,000. So I think if you want to do business and survive, then you need to go to business which is more sustainable and more viable. But then the challenge is we all do it not because we want to make money, because we want to make a difference. And this is where we have to struggle, because the people whom we want to serve, they don't have the money. They are forced to cut wood, though they don't like it, and they don't have the money. At the same time, if they want to, of course, like have luxuries like what we have to be able to cook quickly, comfortably, but that adds cost to it. So I'm glad that Luther, you have been doing a great work of creating this network where people keep on coming, talking to each other, working with each other. So I see my friend Johan, who was here with us in India with Alina a few months back. And I think we need more people like Celestino who are infected and who continuously never give up and try to inspire people and bring people together. So I think this network is a great this thing, and I'm glad to see some very good friends here. Tom, of course, has been one of the leader in. It's like encyclopedia of our solar Coca International, and then though he's not a part of Solar Coca, he'll be always remembered for what he did. And then, of course, I see David and I see, there, of course, David Chocker and Johan, of course, I said Celestino. And then there are more people like Roger Hines I have met, and so yeah, from India. So I think it's good, and I hope that we will all meet in Paris, in Marseille, in May for the Solar Cooking Conference, because I think that is one of the most active network console food. And this is where also I was fortunate to meet Luther Kruger and all. So thank you again for the effort. And I think we need to keep up our efforts and keep on talking with each other. Sometimes we may be repeating, but that's not important. Even if you repeat, at least in that way we stay in touch and we get inspired with each other. So thank you very much for the effort and look forward to be continue to be a part of this organization.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us. And the sidebar, I think I sent an email yesterday or the day before to Deepak,
Yeah.
following up on our conversation in A Coruña about the idea where people approached you or your organization and said, you know, we'd like to stop using wood for cremation. It's a traditional way for a funeral. And I'm thinking to myself, I have probably thought of a lot of the uses for solar energy that would never have occurred to me. And so I did a little research, and there is actually a solar cremation organization in Austin, Texas. For those of you not familiar with Texas or Austin, they have a saying, keep Austin weird, because they're always doing unique things, very much a green city, very progressive. And there is actually an outfit that has started solar cremation. So I want to interview anyone that has anything to do with that. So that's the email I sent, I think, yesterday, Deepak, and
Yeah, yeah. I will respond to it. So I've been working on solar crematorium since 2011. So one of the articles which you sent was about our solar crematorium at Muniseva Ashram. And we continue to work. It's a struggle because it also brings in that one point which you mentioned in your questions. So we have successfully built a concentrator which can burn bodies, but people did not accept it because of the cultural issues. And so we have to make it hybrid so that we can burn the body even at night. And now we are trying to integrate it with biogas because we want to make it carbon neutral. So sooner or later it will come up, and I think that's a need, and there are still some things to tweak about. But yes, I will share with you the reply with you the answer. But I would like to listen to other people more. But
Sure.
thanks for the email, and I will reply to you in detail.
Sounds great. Yeah. Okay. And
Before later I go, just
sure.
one learning which I would like to share with our group. So I think of all the successes I have done, the most satisfying for me was that we created a business model, because the dichotomy was that people who need the technology cannot afford it, and people who can afford it don't need it because they have access to LPG and electrical induction oven and all, and even micro oven. So to bridge that gap, we came out with a business model where we introduced solar cooker not as a solar cooker, but as an income generation tool. And our motto was you pay from your profit, not from your pocket. And then also started doing cluster approach. So instead of going to individual and trying to convince them, we would go to a community and convince the whole community and offer them with microfinance and teach them how to do a livelihood with income generation. And we have been able to convert 5 villages into smoke-free villages by combining them with biogas. So I think we need to not just concentrate on technology, but also develop business models to be able to reach out and make it affordable to people.
Sure. That's great. Okay, moving down the screen. And so I see next on my screen, Juan Bello in España. How are you doing? ¿Cómo está?
Good, good afternoon. Good afternoon here. Nice to meet you, dear friends. Um, I don't know exactly. I use my solar cookers around 200 days per year in my home, and all around me, people is surprised that I use a lot of days in along the year. Um, but I have several friends who I give them a solar cooker, and I use their solar cookers again. They give me the solar cooker, and I use more times their own solar cookers because they are not uh, enough time. There are not the good moment. There are not. They are very busy. There are a lot of explanations, but they don't use the solar cooker. My friends, my brothers, for example, I construct one solar cooker for each other, and they don't use the solar cooker. They come to my home to eat something, cooking with sun, but they don't use their own solar cookers. But I have not a good explanation about the why they are don't use the solar cookers.
Sure. Well, yeah, I think we're in the same boat. I do my solar brunches in my backyard, and probably a handful have gone on to get a solar cooker, and I know they've used them. But most of them, they just look forward to coming to my place to have solar food rather than getting their own and cooking. And that's okay. I mean,
It's a
you do what
step.
you have to do, you know? So, yes, I heard someone else wanted
Yeah,
to
I
speak.
think it's a
Yes,
step. It's a
yes.
necessary step.
Yep. Start somewhere, start with your own backyard, start with your community. My favorite event was we have a school that has a community garden, and I was able to bring the Sun Oven Villager there and several other cookers. And for about 20 volunteers, they were all fed during the harvest of this community garden with solar cooked food. And that did lead one person to get a solar cooker for themselves. So one at a time, that's what we just have to take that. We talk to 10, get one, that's one more ahead. So great. Well, I know that we have two from Solar Household Energy, and I know from researching my presentation, I hope to put together in time for Console Foods to talk about this very topic. We just talk about what are the necessary things we're doing. Well, we reach out to people, but it's not enough if we don't understand what the barriers are. And for my experience reading through reports from Solar Household Energy, they have done the follow up to find out if and when people are stop using the cookers, or if they are, why aren't they using them as much as they could, or what have you. So I'll turn it over to Sophie and Odile to talk about whatever they can share from their research. You've been around for decades, right? So yeah, feel free to unmute and tag team to talk about that.
All right, thanks, Luther. Yeah, so for everybody who doesn't know me, I'm Sophie. I've been with She for about 15 years, and we do a lot of field projects on the ground. And also online with us is board member Odile Brock, who also happens to be my mother because she's been solar cooking with me for 15 years and has been through everything I've been through. She wants to say hi. Odile?
Wait.
Well, she may be. I
Okay.
think we have a new intern volunteer with us who said he'd be online. I'm not sure he's here. Moses, some of you may know him.
Yes, he's
Moses
there.
Bass, I think. So anyways, I guess I'll start off. So yeah, most of what I know just comes from my field project managers, the people I know from the field who WhatsApp me every day and tell me what's going on, take pictures. And then from the evaluations we do, especially the comments section, where they're like, wow, this tiny problem happened. And, it gives a lot of insight as to why adoption is slow. I mean, I'll start with just my own solar cooking experience. Oh, my tea is boiling. Sorry. Um, I first started in Congo, where my mom introduced me to solar cooking, and I put a solar cooker there, and people just sat and watched the solar cooker for 3 hours. And they were just like, I don't know, it's very interesting to them. But, it did eventually cook, and some people who had left and come back said, this is magic. You must have like taken the food out and then put some cooked food back inside. And, when I was in Haiti introducing solar cookers, they came up with strange theories like, well, it causes cancer because, the sunburns cause skin cancer. And I mean, over the years, I've heard many, many excuses as to why people would be scared by solar cooking. One of them actually comes from the seminar I went to for a fuel efficient stove, but I think it applies to everybody. And after years and years of trying to introduce this fuel efficient stove, he finally got an answer as to why nobody wanted to use them. And they said, well, the 3 stones for the 3 stone fire that people cook on, that's a gift from your mother-in-law, like a wedding gift from your mother-in-law. So you better use it. You do not, that's a slap in the face to your mother-in-law if you don't keep on using the 3 stone fire. Um, but, other than like maybe irrational fears about solar cooking, there are lots of good reasons why people don't or can't solar cook. I think what happens in a lot of projects, including our own, is that it's not easy to find people who necessarily can solar cook. You can't see if they actually have a sunny spot in their backyard, or if that spot has to be moved every 5 minutes to follow the sun, right? Or if they are home, or if they're away from home all day, and then the only times they can solar cook are on weekends, and if that weekend isn't sunny, then they cook once a month. There are lots of reasons why people can't solar cook. They may not like the taste of foods cooked in slow cookers, because basically it's steaming. And if you're used to deep frying everything, then steamed chicken is just not gonna taste as good as deep fried chicken. That's what happened in Haiti. We started with sun ovens, and they just said, well, we don't really like the taste. And then they went parabolics, and they preferred that. I don't know if this is obvious to everybody, but I figured hopefully not everybody. Let's see. And then if it doesn't work perfectly the first time or the first couple times, then it's very discouraging. And not only have you wasted your time, you've also wasted food and money, and people who barely have enough to eat in the first place and are struggling, live on $2 a day, cannot afford to just keep on doing trial and error and wasting time and food, and their husbands expect them to have food ready on time. So, that's a big problem too. And a lot of people don't understand how they work. I spent a week in Haiti just training 2 people on how to use a parabolic solar cooker. And even after 5 days, I asked them to set it up and orient it themselves, and they oriented it away from the sun. I'm like, geez, like,
Yes.
okay. We take our science understanding for granted. We know how light comes through the sun, reflects off of reflectors, and the angles at which they do so, and the black pots absorb light, and the greenhouse gas effect. And these people don't have any education in that. And so you see things that you see how they solar cook foods, like they don't close the greenhouse bag and they cook it, and they're like, well, all the heat is escaping. Like, don't you see that? Don't you understand it? And like, of course they don't. They've never been educated in that. So yeah, it's a lot of education, but it's also finding the people who actually can and incorporate solar cooking into their lives. When we try to sell solar cookers, there's yeah, I understand why people wouldn't take the risk of buying solar cookers, honestly. Like it's they're expensive, or even at subsidized prices. They don't know if it'll work. It's a weird contraption. Why their husband usually can, has some say on the purse. And so I think one of the good practices in that case is just to either loan them out, just people can or just borrow them out so that people can try them and return them risk-free for a month or two. But that's very hard to implement in developing countries because solar cookers get stolen and people don't really loan things out. They don't necessarily have bank accounts. It's hard to follow up with them. And it's just not in their culture to, to loan things out and return them. And then when they are returned, if they're in poor condition, what do you do with them? So yeah, a lot of problems like that. Even when we had, the biggest project I've worked on is our solar cooking project in Mexico, the ambassador program, where we got local women in small communities to be our ambassadors. So we had Lorena Harp, who's our field project manager, train them for a few months, and we were just like, okay, cook, and then they cooked 2 or 3 times a week at most, even when they were being paid to cook, and this was their job. Their job depended on it. And we're like, okay, you can sell solar cookers on commission. You get $15 every time you sell a solar cooker. And it worked for a little bit when we were really pressuring them and really trying to make it work. And then it just kind of fizzled out. And they were saying, well, if we don't want commission, we just want a monthly salary. And we're like, that's kind of, $15 is really not bad, because the average household income is $100 in that per month. So it's really surprising that you can't make a $15 commission work for you. There's all kinds of, and it's hard for me to understand. I wish I were there. I would love to have, Lorena's job or any of these field project managers, because it is hard for me to understand the culture, and there's only so much I can offer as advice or new things to try out. And I did invite Lorena Harp to join us, but unfortunately she couldn't make it this weekend. I'm sure she's a wealth of information, and she has 20 plus years of solar cooking experience on the ground. She's amazing at, going to these small rural communities where it can be dangerous, and just immediately, being welcomed, making friends with local people, and cooking with them, which is an amazing skill to have. So what else?
Can I
A couple
join in a
notes.
little bit?
Yes, go
Can
ahead.
you hear me? Okay. So I'm Odile Brock. Bonjour, buenas tardes. Also with Solar Household Energy, I'm the board secretary. So about adoption, what I wanted to say is that we've lately in Mexico, we have teamed up with really settled in NGOs like food banks and Catholic Charities, who regularly go to the communities that we're trying to make adopt solar cooking. Sorry, I'm not, I hope my sentences actually make sense. But when you team up with somebody who goes to a community regularly, and you let them, Lorena Harp shows them how the solar cooker works, and then trains the people, trains 30 or 40 people. And the food bank people are going to come back in, maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly, but they have a food donation which attracts the same people to come back. And if those people are trained to say, hey, how's that solar cooking going? Are you using it? Are you saving on gas, or are you saving on firewood? That will help adoption. I think um, the Solar Sisters have this wonderful program that they've implemented, where they've really held hands with the solar cooker community and had them send, what are you cooking today? Every day, send a WhatsApp encouraging them, don't forget to try to solar cook today. And a lot of people need to have their hand held that way. And if you think about it, we all have our handhelds when we learn to cook at home, right? You don't just suddenly, well, some of us do, grow up and you've never cooked anything, and you're going to lay out a dinner for your family. No, we watch our moms, our grandmoms, our uncles, whoever. And so there's a learning curve to every kind of learning, and every kind of cooking. What's wonderful in Mexico also is that Lorena put a lot of the women's recipes together and made a book out of them. So these are Oaxacan recipes. It's in Spanish. They put pretty pictures in it, and the women love to receive the cookbook along with their solar cooker. So there's ways to do it. The problem is it's expensive. You have to pay someone to go to those communities, or you have to give out the cookers. You have to give food with the cookers. You have to have gas for the car and everything. And you have to keep going back to the same people. And what Solar Household Energy has done is gone back 5 years later and found out that there were still people using their solar cookers, one of them almost every day of the week. Out of, I think we interviewed about 40 people. And our average was somewhere between 2 and 3. With all the questions and the comments that we got, a lot of feedback, we were able to figure out like how to reach the right people, those who are at home, not those who have to go to walk 10 miles to go to their job, those who have a patio that's sunny. There's so many things that you can't just give out cookers and hope that things are going to work out. But we've learned a lot. Sophie has a wonderful video on lessons learned for that from our 5-year evaluation. And I've run out of stuff to say, so.
Well, it's all good, all good. You remind me of a few points I've heard from other people. Sarah Hjalmarsson, whom I met at Consol Foods in 2020, solar chef from Sweden. We both came up with lists of dishes that we have heard people say, "Oh, I bet you can't cook a souffle or you can't cook a risotto," and like every one of them except a handful, I've done. The ones that I didn't do are traditional African or Asian dishes, but we both agreed, of course they can. There may be a couple different steps or different, substitute some spices we don't get here, whatever. But oh yeah, everything can be done solar. It's the same energy. Also, Tom posted, and of course, this is one thing that bears repeating frequently during these sessions is on the wiki. He put the link out there for cultural variables. And not only is there good information there, but also keep in touch with Tom or Paul Hedrick, who maintain the wiki. And if you have some that aren't there, get them at it. I mean, let's make that the one-stop shop for people to find them and learn from all of your experience. So I'll get back to Sophie if there's anything more you'd like to add, or if you have any more on your list, or
Um, yeah, I mean, I think I want to thank Odile because I'm more of a cup half empty kind of person, and I focus too much on the challenges. And my mom is there to remind me that actually we have made so much progress, and these are how we've overcome many of these challenges. So thank you, Odile. So yeah, I think the key point is that we've been with the ambassador program for over 5 years, and I think that's why it's been successful for the most part. After 5 years, even with hand solar cookers that only lasted 2 or 3 years, I think it was higher. Mid-project, the adoption was higher just because after 5 years, some of the hand solar cookers are a little, getting past their prime. We just keep on going to the same communities, and Lorena says, why aren't you using them more, and what's happening? And one thing that's really is some people will use it every day and fantastic. Others won't open their box. Others will use it once a month. And I think the key is really just to find out, first of all, hopefully, better participant selection, try to find out in advance who can use it. But after the fact, if you can take the solar cookers that are not being used, take them back, and give them to people who can use them. Keep on trying that way. I think that's a way to get a higher overall adoption. And it's tricky to do that. But in our last project with the food bank in Querétaro, one person did return her cooker. She said, well, listen, my job doesn't allow me to use it regularly, so here it is back. But we made sure that they paid for it, and when they gave it back, they got their money back. So I think that's a key point, which I think should be incorporated into most projects. Anyhow, yeah, as Odile said, we made recipe books. Just sometimes people just need to be taught new recipes in person, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Anything else you want to add, Odile?
Yeah, I also wanted to mention that I think that Roger's designs have benefited from our
Yes.
feedback loops.
Absolutely.
that's his project has been continuous quality improvement for how many years, Roger? Yeah. Yes, it's always kind of like Dave Chalker had mentioned. Hearing back what went wrong, what could be done to tweak it. I like to say it's probably the panel cooker that's closest to a natural parabolic shape. So a lot of power in a very, very little package. So that's needs to be said. The people should gravitate toward that shape as much as possible if they're going to come up with a new one. Would Moses, you've been involved for a while now. It sounds like intern, is it? Would you like to share any thoughts?
Hi, everyone. Thank
Oh,
you, Luther. We met at Console Food in A Coruña, Spain, and that's where my appetite for solar cooking have been increasing ever since.
great.
So, with regards to the issue of adoption, I've tried to look up about solar cooking, especially in the Gambia where I come from. And I've seen people engage in the process way back in 2006. But then, tracking from 2006 to now, it have just been going down. So up till now, recently, I don't think there are active organization really engaging people frequently like Console Food or Luther is doing. So even in other African countries, the videos that I see are like 10 years ago, 14 years ago, promoting solar cooking. So now they are more or less talking about improved cook stoves using charcoal and still less and less firewood. So those who at least talk about cooking will switch to electric cooking. So generally, solar cooking is more or less not very much actively being promoted in there, at least to what I have found out, especially in Gambia. So I don't know, in terms of the participation of African countries in console food. Luther, from your experience, have you been getting people coming from many African countries to attend console food?
I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't seen enough. There have been folks that have made their presence known, and some of them with the last two, I think, which have been hybrid, they've been able to log in. So, and which is, it's a blessing and a curse because they're able to participate, but there's nothing like being in the same room, being in the same auditorium with, 100 other solar cooks, people that are really committed. So we always need to see more. And Celestino, who is logged in, I'll have him speak last to talk about the upcoming conference in May. And maybe if there's some information he has on how demographics, where are the presentations coming from? I've been on the review committee. I don't think I've gotten all, I think it's up to 40 by now. I've looked at over half of them, and all of them are going to be really worthwhile to hear. But I don't remember. I'd have to go through them again to see where they're all coming from. But good question. We want them coming from everywhere. I've actually literally I have gone through the wiki. Thanks again, Tom, to look at all the cooker makers that have been out there, and there are some where maybe they have there's been no updates on their website for 10 years, and I don't have contact information. But when I get a hold of them, maybe every other one they've moved on to other things. But then some are still doing it. They just haven't updated their website. They're out so busy getting stuff done. So that's what I'm hoping will happen with this forum is every last maker of solar cookers. I'm going to do my darndest to get them at least to this and to Console Foods, and Celestino will be able to speak to that as well. So great. Well, I see one more before Celestino, and I hope I get pronounced the name right. Shaligram Sony, is that you? Would you like to introduce yourself?
मैं शालिग्राम सोनी from India. I am promoting solar cooking in villages. Especially, I introduce solar cooker to cook to prasad in temples of Chhattisgarh, where we want to promote through demonstrate them in schools, anganwadis, and farmers' home. but result is somehow not encouraging. But we want to work more to encourage these activities in rural India, where in home large size angan are available, but in town no sunlight available in home, so it is difficult to promote in urban areas. And I am interested to come Marseille, but some problems, financial and other just passport is to prepare. Time is less, so I am um, interesting to know more in recent year
Sure.
how we progress in solar cooking. We want to prepare project for state government and central government and wanting help from them, but less opportunity to uh, receive something from them. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad you could make it. And everyone note that Celestino has put his email address in the chat. So email him if you're interested in participating, whether even if it's just attending or if you have something that you can share, kind of under the wire to get an abstract in for your presentation. But if you've got a topic that it isn't being covered and you have some unique thoughts, I'm sure that they'll give it some extra consideration. And consolefood.org is the website, and his email is in the chat. So get a hold of Celestino, and I think I have exhausted the whole screens except for Celestino. So unless someone else needs to interject something quickly, I'll turn it over to Celestino.
Hello, my friend.
Yep.
Sorry, my connectivity is not so good. Are you hearing me properly?
Yes.
Okay. So, what about the first question? Barriers. Barriers. There are a lot of barriers. There are a lot of explanations for people that are not adopting solar cooking. People don't have the time, people don't have the space, people are living in a cloudy area or raining area. There are a lot of barriers. But in my opinion, the main barrier is and explain my example. So I am using solar cooking almost every day because I want. I have the sun, I have the cookers, but why? Because I want. So this is the main reason. I can have the sun, I can have the cookers, I can have no money. But if I don't want to use, it will be very, very difficult. Okay? I live in a very sunny area. I have a give for free solar cookers to my friends, neighbors, and most of them are not using the the cooker. So what we can do? So I am pushing the others. For example, João Belo here, our friend, is living in Coruña. Coruña is in Galicia. So is one of the parts of Spain, a number of cloudy days, raining days. But I guess João Belo is one of more times the per year in Spain. And he's not living in Andalusia, he's living in Galicia. So why he's doing that? Because is also infected with the solar cooking virus. So we need to infect more people. It's very, very, very difficult. But we are here to do this. So, my friend, so if you are interested in attending in the conference, please, if you are not registered yet, please send email to me, and then I will inform you about the program. Okay? You are welcome to Marseille to the next conference. Thank you.
Thanks, Celestino. That's fantastic. And a couple points to reiterate. The conference is at Le Presage restaurant in Marseille. I was there before the current restaurant was built when Pierre-André Aubert, the head chef there, was cooking out of converted shipping containers. And the food was excellent. And they were cooking the whole time we were there. My most memorable experience was they had this big tube cooker with a parabolic trough reflector, and he drew out this big tub of what I thought were mushrooms because I was smelling it. Just smelled like perfectly baked mushrooms, buttery. And he said, no, they're their signature eggplant dish, eggplant. And I just said, I don't care what it is. I want to eat it. Cooking entirely with sunlight in these converted shipping containers. Just an incredible atmosphere. I've seen the build out now. They've had the grand opening about a year ago, and that's an aspect for promoting solar cooking that at least in the more developed worlds, but I think everywhere needs to be encouraged. That is for the economics, for the cultural convincing that takes place. You go to a restaurant, you might not be able to spend on that restaurant all the time. You'll want to go there and you'll appreciate that. Well, hey, I could do that at home. So that's one part of it. And then the conference is the first one I went to in 2020. I just could barely keep my head on straight because it was so overwhelming how many different cookers there were, how many committed individuals were out there. What I learned with each conference it can be overwhelming. But you know what? Let yourself be overwhelmed. You can you can choose which topics you want to really take to heart and bring back to your country, to your neighborhood. So, well, I can't think of anything else. I mean, I definitely, as soon as we get off, I'll think, oh, here's the 10 other things I could have said, but I was so glad to hear from all of you. And I'm glad you're okay with this being recorded and shared amongst the other cooker makers. And I'll send out a poll. I don't mind making this public. The original idea behind keeping it just for the cooker makers is in case there's like trade secrets or whatever. I don't know. We just wanted to start off to say, how are we going to make this happen? But over time, this may just be something where we can share it with everyone. Still invitation only because we want to keep it focused on the manufacture and distribution. So any last items? I think we've covered pretty much everything I had in mind to talk about, but I know there's always a gap. Any last, as they say at the Rotary meetings, anything left for the good of the order that people would like to talk about?
This is Tom Spanheim. I have something I'd like to say. It's
Sure.
my perpetual entreaty to everybody to realize that when you go to the Solar Cooking Wiki and you're reading an article about, let's just say, solar cooking in South Africa, and there's something missing. Now, of course, we would like you to click the edit button and put in a nice, well-reasoned, informational, contribution with a photograph and everything, but that's beyond most people because you're not used to editing the wiki. But all you really need to do is just type in, we're working on this in South Africa, contact me, and some information, your name, and we will see that immediately because we have a screen where we can see all the changes. And we would then contact you and we would write it up for you. So anything you want to contribute, we'd really appreciate it. And also, I sent in the chat a link to the cultural variables article that we have. So anyway, thank you.
Would it be all right if I put your email and Paul Hedrick's email for people to contact as well? Maybe if they're offline or they
Why don't
only
you
have.
put Paul's for now? Yeah.
Okay, sure. Because Paul is always making that plea on the World Network. I know, Tom, you've always dropped in when you can to share as well. And I did mention, I think you had stepped out of the room, that I asked everyone if they have new stuff of the cultural barriers to get a hold of you to make sure it gets added. You guys, you and Paul.
Definitely, right. Just shoot Paul an email, just a rough email on anything, and he'll add it. He's paid by Solar Cookers International to edit the wiki, so make use of it, because the wiki gets about, I'm guessing, I haven't looked for a while, but 500,000 page views a year. So, like that's tens of thousands from each country in the world, most countries. So if you want your stuff to be seen, that's the place to put it. And it's very simple. Just write paul@solarcookers.org, and anything you want, he'll put it on there for you at his own discretion, of course. And I just wanted to mention, most people don't know this, but the wiki actually sits at solarcooking.fandom.com, and we're given a free, ad-free version because the company likes what we're doing. And then we originally used to use solarcooking.org, and we had the Solar Cooking archive there, but we made it so that solarcooking.org redirects to the wiki. So you can go either way. And also, anything that if you type solarcooking.org/culture, it automatically sees an error and goes, oh, they probably want to go to the wiki, and it automatically finds the right article on the wiki. So you can do that kind of work too. At the moment, you can't do HTTPS solarcooking.org. Keep aware of that. We're working on that. Anyway.
Sure. Next time we meet, I'm going to poll everyone. How many of, just like you guys are asking, are you still using your cooker? I'm going to ask each of you, have you bookmarked solarcooking.fandom.com? I'm sure some of you already have. Okay. Anything left to say that needs to be said? If not, we'll let you get back to your very busy solar lives. I'll close with I had an email conversation with Dave Oxford, who was on briefly, but he texted me that he was having technical difficulties. Somehow the expression working with the soul polloi came to mind. You've heard of the hoi polloi. Well, we're working with the soul polloi. All right. I might actually make my museum website to be soulpolloi.com or org or net or something. So great. Well, thanks again, everyone. And I think I have most or all of your emails. If I don't, I'll put that in the chat real quick too, and before I log off. Send me a note, or I'll get it from and others like Moses. I think I saw you on my list, but I don't remember if I had your email, for instance. So you can see this museum@bigbluesun.net. I think that came out right. And feel free to share that with anyone else you know that's making solar cookers, either for sale or just they want to give them away for free.
Well, Roger has a 6-pack
Yes.
with the duffel bag. So that's really easy. It's all done
Oh,
for
yeah.
you.
Maybe you could combine it with Mary and Jennifer. They had what they called the solar suitcase. That was just a carry-on bag that opened up with reflective material and insulation all around it. So you just need, and a cooking bag already there. So you remove your clothes and your makeup kit, whatever, and you can start cooking off the balcony in your hotel. Could probably fit 2 or 3 Haineses in there. Okay. I think that we'll call that a successful session. Thanks, everyone. And
Thank you.
we'll send you the reminder for March when we'll have to send me ideas for topics for March as well. And we're open to
Thank you,
anyone doing
Luther.
presentations. Thank you.